The dawn of defiance. Admiral Kira Yamamoto stood at the observation deck of Lunar Base Echo, her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she watched another defense fleet reduced to debris by Vraxian warships. Their purple energy shields flickered mockingly as they absorbed humanity's most powerful weapons like they were nothing more than gentle rain. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the devastation unfolding before her. Lieutenant James Rodriguez, her tactical officer, struggled to keep his voice professional. "The 8th Fleet is gone, Admiral. The Vraxian shields negated everything we threw at them. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, even the new quantum disruptors. Nothing penetrates their defensive fields." Kira closed her eyes, adding another 1,000 names to the mental list of those lost to Vraxian superiority. When they'd first appeared in Earth space 6 months ago, humanity had been confident in their defenses. 3 centuries of technological advancement had made them one of the strongest powers in known space. But the Vraxians operated on a different level entirely. "Get me Director Patel at Quantum Weapons Research," she ordered, turning away from the window. "And patch in General Zhou from Special Operations." Minutes later, the holographic forms of both officers materialized in her office. Director Ravi Patel's usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, dark circles under his eyes suggesting days without sleep. General Wei Zhou's expression was grim, his decorated uniform a stark contrast to the defeat in his eyes. "The quantum disruptors failed," Kira stated without preamble. "Just like everything else we've tried." Patel nodded wearily. "Their shield technology, it's like nothing we've ever encountered. It doesn't just block our attacks, it seems to adapt to them. The more energy we throw at it, the stronger it becomes." "Then we need to think differently," Zhou interjected. "We can't beat them with brute force. We need to find a way around their shields entirely." A junior researcher, Dr. Fatima Hassan, had been quietly analyzing data in the corner of Patel's lab. She suddenly straightened, her eyes wide with realization. What if that's exactly what we need to do? Think differently, completely differently. All eyes turned to her. Kira gestured for her to continue. "We've been trying to overcome their shields with pure energy weapons," Fatima explained, pulling up complex quantum formulas. "But what if we've been thinking about this all wrong? Their shields are designed to handle massive energy impacts. But what about minimal energy signatures? Something so low-tech it's practically invisible to their systems. You want us to fight an advanced alien empire with primitive weapons?" Zhou asked incredulously. "Not primitive," Fatima corrected, her fingers flying across her datapad. "Look at these readings from their shield impacts. The energy dispersion pattern, it's like a net. A net with holes, incredibly tiny holes, but holes nonetheless. What if we could create weapons that could slip through those holes?" Kira leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of weapons?" "Physical weapons. Blades. But not just any blades," Fatima continued, her excitement building. "We could engineer them at the quantum level, create edge harmonics that would resonate at exactly the right frequency to pass through their shield gaps. Combined with powered armor designed to do the same." "You're talking about sending soldiers with swords against their battleships," Patel said flatly. "I'm talking about combining humanity's oldest weapons with our most advanced quantum engineering," Fatima countered. "Their shields evolved to stop energy weapons, not a quantum-harmonized blade wielded by a trained warrior." Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. It was insane. Desperate. Possibly suicidal. But they were running out of options, and the Vraxians were pushing closer to Earth every day. Kira stood, her decision made. "Dr. Hassan, you have whatever resources you need. General Zhou, begin identifying candidates for this program. We'll need soldiers willing to train in both ancient combat techniques and quantum harmonics. Director Patel, work with Dr. Hassan on the technical specifications." She turned back to the window, watching as the Vraxian fleet regrouped for another attack. Soon they would learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, it was in their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. Let's show them why you should never corner a species that once conquered their world with nothing but sharpened steel and determination. In the weeks that followed, Project Claymore took shape in secret facilities beneath the lunar surface. While the regular military continued its desperate holding action against the Vraxian advance, Fatima and her team worked tirelessly to perfect their quantum-harmonized weapons. Each blade was a masterpiece of engineering, combining traditional metallurgy with cutting-edge quantum mechanics. The first successful test came a month later. In a heavily shielded chamber, a prototype sword wielded by a power-armored soldier sliced through a captured piece of Vraxian shield technology like it wasn't even there. The blade's edge, vibrating at precisely calculated quantum frequencies, simply ignored the energy field entirely. As Kira watched the test footage, she allowed herself to feel hope for the first time since the invasion began. The Vraxians had conquered dozens of worlds with their supposedly impenetrable shields, creating an empire built on technological superiority. They had never faced an enemy willing to adapt quite like this. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapons weren't their ships or their guns, but their endless capacity for innovation and their refusal to accept defeat. The age of quantum warriors was about to begin, and with it, perhaps humanity's best chance for survival. Ancestral innovation. The underground training facility echoed with the clash of steel on steel as Master Sergeant Takeshi Tanaka watched his latest group of recruits practice their forms. These weren't ordinary soldiers anymore, they were the first class of what the brass had dubbed quantum warriors, though Takeshi preferred to think of them as modern-day samurai. "Your blade is an extension of yourself," he called out, pacing between the sparring pairs. "Feel the quantum harmonics flowing through your armor, through your weapons. Let them become part of your natural movement." Isabella Reyes, formerly a demolitions expert from the Mexican Special Forces, paused in her training to adjust the neural interface of her power armor. The sleek black suit was a marvel of engineering, each plate calibrated to match the quantum frequency of her sword. "Master Sergeant, the harmonics feel different today." Takeshi nodded approvingly at her sensitivity to the subtle changes. Dr. Hassan's team adjusted the frequencies this morning. The Vraxians have been trying to adapt their shields. We're staying one step ahead. In her laboratory 2 levels below, Fatima Hassan was indeed hard at work with her team. Holographic displays showed the latest shield penetration simulations while quantum computers crunched through millions of possible frequency combinations. "The problem isn't just getting through their shields anymore," she explained to Admiral Yamamoto, who had come down for a progress report. "It's maintaining our advantage. The Vraxians are brilliant engineers, they're already trying to modify their shield harmonics to counter our weapons. How long can we stay ahead of them?" Kira asked, watching as another simulation showed a quantum-harmonized blade slicing through a projected energy barrier. "That's where this gets interesting," Fatima replied, pulling up a new display. "We've been studying historical martial arts texts from cultures around the world. Each fighting style has its own unique rhythms, its own patterns of movement. We're incorporating these into the quantum harmonics themselves." She gestured to a nearby weapons rack where blades of various designs gleamed under the laboratory lights. Each weapon is tuned differently. A katana's frequencies are distinct from a medieval longsword's, which differs from a Chinese dao. By training our warriors in multiple styles, they can switch between harmonic patterns mid-combat. It makes our attacks essentially impossible to predict or counter. Above them, Takeshi was demonstrating this principle to his students. His power armor hummed as he moved through a complex kata, his blade shifting between different quantum states with each change in technique. The air itself seemed to sing as he wove Eastern and Western sword patterns into a deadly new art form. "This is what will give us our edge," he explained, bringing his blade to rest. "The Vraxians think in terms of technology, of mathematical perfection. We're combining that precision with something they can't quantify, human adaptability and martial skill." The training program was intense. Each warrior had to master not only traditional fighting techniques but also the complex quantum mechanics that made their weapons effective. They learned to feel the subtle variations in their blades' harmonics, to instinctively adjust their attacks to match the ever-changing frequencies of Vraxian shields. But it wasn't just about combat training. The program was creating something entirely new, a fusion of ancient warrior traditions with bleeding-edge science. The warriors spent as much time in quantum physics classes as they did in the dojo, learning to understand the principles that made their fighting style possible. Remember, Fatima told them during one of her lectures, "You're not just soldiers anymore. You're quantum physicists in motion. Every strike, every parry, every step is an exercise in applied dimensional mathematics." The breakthrough came during a late-night training session. Isabella was sparring with another recruit when she discovered she could actually feel the quantum frequencies through her armor's neural interface. It wasn't just data anymore, it was like a new sense, as natural as sight or touch. "It's beautiful," she told Takashi afterward, watching the quantum harmonics dance across her blade's edge. "It's like having a conversation with the universe at its most fundamental level." Word of the program's success began to spread through the Resistance's high command. More resources were allocated, more recruits were brought in. Deep beneath the lunar surface, humanity was forging a new kind of warrior, one that combined the wisdom of their ancestors with the most advanced science they could create. But time was running out. The Vraxians were pushing deeper into the solar system, their fleets now engaging human forces around Mars. Earth's conventional defenses were being slowly but surely overwhelmed. In her office, Admiral Yamamoto reviewed the latest training reports with growing anticipation. The first full company of quantum warriors would be ready for deployment within days. Now they just needed the right moment, the right target, to reveal humanity's new defenders. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "Operation Swordfall begins in 72 hours. Let's show these aliens that humanity still has a few surprises left." As the orders went out, Takashi gathered his warriors for their final training session. In the vast underground chamber, hundreds of quantum-harmonized blades caught the light, each one representing humanity's unique answer to an overwhelming threat. "Tomorrow," he told them, "we remind the galaxy that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones, especially when combined with a little human innovation." The first strike. The Vraxian command ship, Eternal Dominance, hung in high orbit above Mars, its massive purple shields shimmering against the red planet's backdrop. Commander Zextal stood on his bridge, multiple eye stalks swiveling to monitor various tactical displays. The conquest of the human system was proceeding exactly as calculated. "Status of the human resistance," he chittered to his tactical officer. "Minimal and decreasing, Commander. Their remaining fleet elements around Mars have been reduced by 78%. Their weapons remain ineffective against our shield technology." Zextal's facial tentacles rippled with satisfaction. Like all Vraxian military commanders, he had absolute faith in their technological superiority. Humanity's stubborn resistance was admirable but ultimately futile. That's when the first alarms started blaring. Multiple small craft approaching from the planet's dark side, his sensor officer reported. "Configuration unknown. They appear to be dropships." Zextal's satisfaction turned to amusement. "Let them come. Their weapons cannot harm us. Maintain shield configuration alpha and prepare to." "Sir. Energy spike in defensive grid 4. We've lost containment in sections 12 through 15. The impossible reports started flooding in. Human warriors in strange armor were somehow aboard 3 of their support ships. The Vraxian crew's confusion quickly turned to terror as they encountered an enemy unlike anything in their tactical databases. Aboard the Vraxian vessel, Swift Conquest, Isabella Reyes led her strike team through the alien corridors, their quantum-harmonized blades cutting through security barriers like they weren't even there. Her katana hummed with deadly purpose as she shifted through the fighting forms Master Tanaka had drilled into them. Remember your training, she sub-vocalized through the team's quantum-encrypted comms. Flow between styles. Don't let them predict your patterns. A squad of Vraxian security forces rounded the corner, their energy weapons charging. Isabella smiled beneath her helmet as she shifted her blade's harmonics to match their personal shields. The alien's confidence turned to horror as her katana passed through their defenses like ghost steel, leaving only silence in its wake. 3 decks above, quantum warrior Marcus Okoro was demonstrating why his Nigerian ancestors had been feared weapon masters. His quantum-harmonized spear danced through Vraxian defenders, its frequencies shifting with each thrust and sweep. The aliens had no defense against weapons they couldn't even detect on their sensors. Back on the command ship, Zextal was facing a nightmare. His tactical displays showed human warriors materializing throughout his fleet, somehow bypassing their most sophisticated security systems. Worse, conventional weapons seemed useless against their strange armor. Impossible, he chittered in frustration. They were beaten. Their technology was inferior. Sir, his tactical officer's voice shook. The humans, they're using bladed weapons. But our sensors can't, they're not registering as weapons at all. In the void between ships, more quantum drop pods were arriving. Each one carried a team of warriors, their armor and weapons tuned to frequencies that let them slip through Vraxian defenses like shadows through sunlight. Admiral Yamamoto watched the battle unfold from her cloaked command vessel. The plan was working better than they'd dared hope. The Vraxians' over-reliance on energy shields had left them completely unprepared for weapons that operated on completely different principles. Status report, she commanded. Quantum warriors have breached 12 enemy vessels, her tactical officer reported with barely contained excitement. Vraxian combat effectiveness is down 60% and falling. They're starting to panic, Admiral. Their formation is breaking down. In the heart of the largest Vraxian ship, Takashi Tanaka led the strike against their engineering section. His quantum-harmonized nodachi sang through the air as he demonstrated why the samurai had been history's greatest sword masters. Each strike was a lesson in physics and death, his blade's frequencies dancing between dimensions. For Earth, he whispered, his sword describing an perfect arc that severed the ship's main power conduits. Throughout the Vraxian fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Humanity's quantum warriors moved like ghosts through their enemy's most sophisticated defenses. Ships that had never known defeat were being systematically taken apart from the inside by warriors wielding weapons that should have been relegated to museums. Isabella's team reached their objective, the Vraxian fleet's central communication hub. As her warriors secured the room, she planted quantum-synchronized charges that would prevent the aliens from warning the rest of their empire about humanity's new capabilities. This is Reyes, she reported. Phase 1 complete. Moving to Phase 2. Across the battlefield, other teams acknowledged. The Vraxians were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating human ingenuity. Their mighty shields, which had protected them for centuries, were useless against warriors who had found a way to simply step through them. Commander Zextal watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy he dismissed as primitive. His final transmission to the Vraxian Empire was cut short as a quantum-harmonized blade emerged from his command console, followed by a human warrior whose armor seemed to flicker between dimensions. In just under 4 hours, the battle was over. The mighty Vraxian Mars fleet, pride of their empire's expansion forces, had been completely neutralized by what their tactical computers still insisted were impossibly primitive weapons. Admiral Yamamoto allowed herself a small smile as she prepared to send a message to Earth. Humanity had just changed the rules of warfare in the galaxy. The Vraxians would adapt, of course, they were too intelligent not to. But by then, humanity's quantum warriors would have evolved as well. The age of energy shields and massive warships was ending. The era of the quantum blade had begun. Empire's response. The grand chamber of the Vraxian High Command pulsed with angry crimson light as the assembled war leaders watched the footage from Mars for the 100th time. The silence was broken only by the occasional agitated clicking of mandibles as they witnessed their supposedly invincible fleet fall to warriors wielding what appeared to be primitive cutting weapons. High Commander Vexthor, supreme military leader of the Vraxian Empire, rose from his crystalline throne. His iridescent carapace reflected the harsh lighting as he addressed the chamber. 3 centuries of imperial expansion, he rasped. Dozens of species subjugated. Hundreds of worlds claimed. And now we face defeat at the hands of humans with swords. His voice rose to a shriek on the final word. Dr. Fatima Hassan would have been fascinated by the scene unfolding in the Vraxian war chamber, had she known about it. Instead, she was deep in her lunar laboratory, analyzing combat data from the Mars engagement. They're already trying to adapt, she told Admiral Yamamoto, pointing to energy readings from the few Vraxian ships that had escaped. Their shield frequencies are becoming more chaotic, harder to predict. They're learning. Can they stop our quantum-harmonized weapons? Kira asked, studying the complex wavefront patterns. Not yet. But they're brilliant engineers. They'll figure out countermeasures eventually. Which is why we need to stay ahead of them. Fatima gestured to a new series of prototypes laid out on her workbench. Welcome to the next generation of quantum weapons. On the other side of the solar system, the Vraxian response was taking shape. A massive fleet was assembling near Neptune, larger than any they had previously committed to this campaign. But these ships were different. Their shields pulsed with ever-changing frequencies, and their hulls were reinforced with new quantum dispersal armor. The humans believe they have found our weakness, Vexthor addressed his assembled commanders. They think their primitive technology combined with quantum mechanics has given them an advantage. We will show them the true meaning of technological superiority. Isabella Reyes felt the change during a routine patrol near the Jupiter defense line. Her quantum-harmonized katana encountered unexpected resistance when testing a captured Vraxian shield barrier. The frequencies are wrong, she reported back to command. They're implementing some kind of randomized quantum field. Our standard harmonics aren't getting through as cleanly. Master Sergeant Tanaka received similar reports from other quantum warriors across the solar system. The Vraxians were adapting faster than expected, their shield technology evolving to counter humanity's innovative weapons. But humanity wasn't standing still either. In response to the changing tactical situation, Fatima's team had developed what they called adaptive quantum resonance. The new weapons could shift their harmonic frequencies in real time, probing for weaknesses in the Vraxian defenses. Think of it like a quantum lockpick, she explained to a group of veteran warriors. Your blades will constantly scan enemy shields, searching for harmonic vulnerabilities. When they find one, they'll automatically adjust to exploit it. The first test of these new capabilities came sooner than expected. A Vraxian probing force, equipped with their latest defensive systems, attacked the Saturn colonies. They expected their enhanced shields to render them immune to humanity's quantum warriors. They were wrong. Marcus Okoro led the defense, his quantum-adaptive spear piercing through their supposedly impenetrable barriers. The weapon's edge danced through quantum states, finding gaps in the Vraxian defenses faster than their systems could adapt to close them. The blade remembers, he quoted his instructors as his strike team systematically disabled the alien vessels. The quantum harmonics flow like water, finding every crack, every weakness. In the Vraxian High Command, frustration turned to genuine concern. Reports flooded in from across the front lines, the humans were somehow defeating their new defensive systems. Worse, their warriors were becoming more skilled, more adaptable. They're not just using the technology, one analyst reported, multiple eyes blinking in agitation. They're mastering it in ways our simulations said were impossible. Their combat patterns are evolving. The truth was becoming clear to both sides, this conflict had evolved beyond a simple technological arms race. The human quantum warriors weren't just soldiers using advanced weapons, they were becoming something entirely new. Their fighting styles blended ancient martial arts with quantum mechanics in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Admiral Yamamoto stood in the observation dome of Lunar Base Echo, watching as another Vraxian attack force was systematically dismantled by her warriors. The aliens had thought superior technology alone would guarantee their victory. Instead, they had forced humanity to create a perfect fusion of past and future, of tradition and innovation. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "Operation Quantum Storm is approved. It's time to take the fight to their territory." As the orders went out, quantum warriors across the solar system prepared for their greatest challenge yet. The Vraxians had pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. Now they would learn why that had been a terrible mistake. In her lab, Fatima put the finishing touches on her latest creation, a quantum harmonization system that could be applied to larger weapons. Soon, humanity's ships would carry the same capabilities as their warriors. The age of conventional energy weapons was truly coming to an end. The final phase of the war was about to begin. The Vraxian Empire had sown the wind with their arrogant invasion. They were about to reap the whirlwind. Victory's edge. The Vraxian homeworld's 3 moons cast an eerie glow over the massive fleet assembled in high orbit. 5,000 ships, the largest armada ever gathered in the Empire's history, stood ready to crush the human resistance once and for all. Their newly modified quantum dispersal shields rippled with complex harmonics designed to counter humanity's warriors. High Commander Vexthor surveyed the assembled might of his civilization with grim satisfaction. "The humans believe they have changed the nature of warfare," he addressed his fleet commanders. "Today we will show them that true power still lies in overwhelming force." He had no way of knowing that this was exactly what humanity had been waiting for. Deep within the fleet's formation, quantum distortions began to form. Space itself seemed to ripple as hundreds of human-dropped ships emerged from previously undetectable wormholes, their hulls covered in the same quantum-harmonized materials as their warriors' armor. Admiral Yamamoto's voice cut through all frequencies. "Operation Quantum Storm is go. All warriors, execute your objectives. Show them what humanity can do." The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. The Vraxian fleet's sophisticated targeting systems struggled to lock onto ships and warriors that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Fatima Hassan's latest innovations allowed humanity's forces to phase between dimensions, becoming practically ghost-like when needed. Isabella Reyes led the first strike team into the Vraxian flagship. Her quantum-adaptive katana sang through the alien corridors, its edge finding weaknesses in even their most advanced shields. Behind her, 24 warriors moved like shadows, their weapons guided by both ancient skill and cutting-edge science. "Remember your training," she called out as they encountered heavy resistance. "Flow like water, strike like lightning. Let the quantum harmonics guide your blade." In the void of space, Marcus Okoro commanded one of the new quantum-enhanced destroyers. The ship itself was a weapon, its hull resonating with the same frequencies as their handheld weapons but on a massive scale. It phased through Vraxian defensive lines like they weren't even there, leaving devastation in its wake. "The blade remembers," he whispered as his ship cut through another enemy vessel. "And so does steel." Master Sergeant Tanaka, leading the assault on the Vraxian Central Command Station, found himself facing High Commander Vexthor himself. The alien leader had equipped himself with their most advanced personal shield technology, expecting to be invulnerable. The duel that followed was unlike anything either civilization had seen before. Tanaka's quantum-harmonized Nodachi shifted through combat forms developed over Earth's long history of warfare, each strike calculated to exploit weaknesses in Vraxian defensive theory. Vexthor's shields adapted and shifted, but could never quite predict where or how the next attack would land. "You fight with primitive weapons," the Vraxian commander chittered in frustration as another strike nearly penetrated his defenses. "No," Tanaka corrected, his blade describing complex patterns in space. "We fight with understanding. Of ourselves, of our past, of the quantum nature of reality itself. That is something your empire never grasped. His next strike ended the duel, and with it, the Vraxian Empire's dreams of conquest. In her lunar laboratory, Dr. Fatima Hassan watched the quantum sensor feeds with tears in her eyes. What had started as a desperate gambit, combining humanity's martial heritage with bleeding-edge physics, had evolved into something revolutionary. Their warriors weren't just fighting, they were rewriting the rules of what was possible. Admiral Yamamoto stood on her bridge as the reports of victory poured in. The Vraxian fleet was in ruins, their homeworld's defenses systematically dismantled by warriors wielding weapons that represented the perfect fusion of past and future. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "The war is over. Humanity stands victorious." In the aftermath, as peace treaties were drawn up and boundaries established, the galaxy had to come to terms with a new reality. Humanity had not just defeated one of the most powerful empires in known space, they had fundamentally changed the nature of warfare itself. The quantum warriors became legendary, their abilities sought after by other civilizations. But humanity remembered the lessons of the Vraxians and guarded their secrets carefully. The knowledge of how to combine ancient combat arts with quantum mechanics became one of Earth's most closely guarded treasures. Isabella, standing at graduation ceremony for a new class of warriors months later, smiled as she watched them demonstrate their skills. Each warrior represented the best of humanity, their connection to their past, their drive to innovate, and their indomitable spirit. "We prevailed," she told the assembled graduates, "not because we had superior technology or greater numbers. We prevailed because we remembered something the Vraxians had forgotten, that true strength lies not in the weapon, but in the wisdom of how to use it." As the solar system returned to peace, humanity continued to advance their quantum warrior program. The integration of ancient combat techniques with quantum mechanics expanded into other fields, leading to breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and space exploration. They had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all, that the path forward sometimes required looking backward, and that the greatest innovations could come from honoring the wisdom of the past while embracing the possibilities of the future. The age of the quantum warriors had only just begun, and with it, humanity's next great adventure among the stars.